Today we're going to learn about prepositions of movement, which we use when we talk about things that are moving from one place to another. This is very useful when you describe directions, travel, or everyday actions like driving, walking, or riding a bicycle. For example, when you give directions in a city or talk about traffic, you need these prepositions to explain clearly what is happening. Let's start with some basic prepositions of movement. We use to when we talk about movement in the direction of a place. For example, the boy is going to school, or we are driving to the petrol station. We use from to show where the movement starts. For example, she is coming from the car park, or we begin from this street. So to shows the destination and from shows the starting point. Now let's look at into and out of. We use into when someone or something moves from outside to inside. For example, she is going into the building, or they got into the car. On the other hand, we use out of when someone leaves a place. For example, he is getting out of the car, or she walked out of the house. These are very common when talking about cars, buildings, or places. We also use up and down to describe movement in vertical directions. For example, she is walking up the stairs, or he is driving down the hill. These are useful when talking about movement in a city or different levels, like streets or buildings. Another important preposition is across, which means from one side to the other side. For example, he is walking across the road. We also have through, which means moving inside something from one side to the other. For example, they are driving through a tunnel. These are very useful when you talk about roads, bridges, or places like tunnels. We can also use past, which means going by something. For example, he is walking past the petrol station, and around or round, which we use when something moves in a circle. For example, the cars are going around the roundabout. This is very common when giving directions while driving. Now let's talk about in and into and on and onto, because this can be confusing. When there is movement, we can often use both forms. For example, she is going in the building, or she is going into the building, and both are correct. The same happens with on and onto. For example, she is putting the bag on the seat or onto the seat. However, when there is no movement, we only use in or on. For example, she is in the car and the bag is on the seat. We do not say into or onto if nothing is moving. These prepositions are very useful when we talk about cars, bikes, and directions. For example, you can say, get into the car, get out of the car, drive across the road, or turn at the traffic light. You can also say, go straight on, follow the road, or take the next left at the roundabout. If you are giving directions, you might say, go past the petrol station and turn right, or drive through the motorway tunnel. To finish, remember that prepositions of movement help you describe how people and things move from one place to another. They are very important for giving directions and talking about travel. Try to practice them when you talk about driving, walking, or riding a bicycle. The more you use them, the easier and more natural your English will be.